Is this crazy? We stand on the verge of the 4 greatest years in the history. Make America great again. How can you be against it?
This is Sidebar from the Washington Post. I'm Libby Casey, and I'm here with Rhonda Colvin and James Hohman. And my friends, should we ever have to part ways, let us not berate each other on Twitter, now known as X. Can you even imagine? Messy breakups are tough enough, but when it happens in front of the public eye and on a social media platform, ouch. Well, we are in the middle of watching that between two major characters of our national drama right now, Elon Musk and President Donald Trump. Elon was core to Trump's plan to remake the federal government. Now, he left government service 1 week ago. I can't believe it. So recently, he received a golden key from Trump on his way out, but now the parting is maybe not such sweet sorrow because Trump and Musk are at war on X, and Trump is saying all of this out loud. Let's listen to President Trump's remarks.
I'm very disappointed because Elon knew the inner workings of this bill better than almost anybody sitting here, better than you people. He knew everything about it. He had no problem with it. All of a sudden he had a problem. And he only developed the problem when he found out that we're going to have to cut the EV mandate, because that's billions and billions of dollars. And if you saw the statements he made about me, which I'm sure you can get very easily, it's very fresh on tape. He said the most beautiful things about me. And he hasn't said bad about me personally, but I'm sure that'll be next.
That is President Trump talking about Elon Musk. Let's go back in time 2 days. So we were taping Sidebar and a tweet came over the ether, Elon Musk bashing the big, beautiful bill and really condemning this major law that's going to be the signature hallmark of President Trump's legacy if it ever gets passed. Rhonda, what happened?
And it was pretty quick. Like, he didn't wait a few days. He immediately, Musk, went on X and said the bill is no good. Shame on the Republicans for pushing it through. I think it shows that Musk is no longer in Trump's inner circle. And I think we are, when you played that clip, I started to think of the first Trump administration. And do you remember when there were people who Trump was falling out with, he would eventually say, I never knew the guy, or I wasn't that close to him. I almost wonder, is he going to start saying that, even though we know that's not true? But he is creating distance and putting Elon Musk on the sidelines, which is a sign for, the Republicans who cozied up to Elon Musk as well. They also are distancing themselves from Musk.
It's really interesting because the Republicans came out swinging Republican leadership, the White House, after Elon called the bill a disgusting abomination. And then he has sort of stepped things up. He's playing Trump's own tweets against him, retweeting Trump from a decade ago, saying you shouldn't vote to raise the debt ceiling.
This is his Trump tweet. I can't believe the Republicans are extending the debt ceiling. I'm a Republican and I am embarrassed. And this is like that how does a tweet age thing, right? And Musk is throwing Donald Trump's own words back at him.
And then just before we taped this, Musk said, without me, he spent more than $300 million. Without me, Donald Trump wouldn't be president. Democrats would control the House and Republicans would have 3 fewer seats in the Senate than they have. So taking credit for his big spending last year. And the Republican pushback has been interesting because we heard it in that tape from Trump. They're eager to present Musk as self-interested, that he's kind of a crony capitalist, that he's trying to get handouts from the government to sell Teslas and to get government contracts, and that he's not sort of in it for the right reasons.
Why should we care?
It says a lot about the chaos of Trump 1 is a different kind of chaos, but the chaos continues. And I think chaos is one of the key words to describe Trump's approach to politics. I think Musk actually, I do believe he is motivated by wanting these EV contracts. And I think the Senate bill is actually changing to, in ways separate from pandering to Elon, that make the bill more beneficial to Tesla, that slow the phase out of some of the credits and different things. I think we should care because Elon was the guy who was in charge of this Department of Government Efficiency that was supposed to originally identify $2 trillion in waste. And at the end of all this, Musk is out there highlighting the Congressional Budget Office estimate that came out yesterday that said that the version of the bill that passed the House would inflate the debt by $2.4 trillion over the next decade. If you add in the money to pay the interest on the extra debt, it's $3 trillion. And candidly, Musk is not wrong about that. And so if you come in and you're saying we're going to get control of the debt, and here's the guy who was in charge of trying to cut government spending saying this is going to jack it up, even if he has his own motives, I think that's a point that Trump and others, rather than getting personal, should have to grapple with or respond to.
I want to come back to Elon Musk, but Rhonda, is the bill in trouble in other quarters? Like, is Elon Musk this lone voice, or are there rumblings within the Republican Party, especially in the Senate, who has to take on this bill, that this has to change or that there are issues?
Yeah, there have definitely been rumblings for a while now outside of whatever Musk is saying on Twitter or X. I'm sorry. And
so old
they,
school, Rhonda.
right. They go back, for weeks now. We have had Republican senators who have said the big, beautiful bill is a no-go. I have heard that over and over again from some of the same people who are consistently saying it this week. I'm thinking of Ron Johnson. I'm thinking of Rand Paul. There wasn't a lot of appetite to begin with among Senate Republicans to have a bill that did this much, is over 1,100 pages, has so many cuts that no one knows how to explain to constituents. There was always concern about that, and that's outside of whatever Elon Musk has said.
And yet, despite that, like, there is this feeling like it's just going to get muscled through. I mean, is that fair to say? Like, Trump's pushing so hard. He had success in the House, even with some really hardline deficit hawk Republicans, either just sort of backing away or averting their eyes or holding their nose, whatever you want to say. And so it does have this feeling of inevitability. Is that feeling changing, Rhonda?
I never know what will happen in the future, as I always say, my disclaimer, but I will say the signs are, under this environment, with how much pressure Trump puts on Republicans and how much they have decided to make decisions that they would not have made in any other administration. I think we have seen signs that they will just eventually pass this. However, if it does pass, it's going to be because a lot of concessions were made, a lot of ugliness and negotiations behind closed doors among Republicans happened. It's not going to pass easily. I think everyone can agree on that point. But I think that the presence of Trump in the White House has always created somewhat of an incredible stress test for the legislative branch, where it's like pushing on glass. You're going to have cracks. And we are seeing that, where you have Republicans from different flanks who would never agree on some things now agreeing and trying to create a coalition against this bill. We've talked about Josh Hawley. We've talked about Susan Collins, Murkowski, like I said, Ron Johnson. And again, let's remember the math. Thune can only lose 3 Senate Republicans. So I've already just named like 5 Republicans who have problems with this bill.
So, as Musk comes out against this, I told you we get back to Elon Musk. Like, does it taint things? Does it is reminding people of these things that Republicans would really rather not be talking about, like the huge addition to the deficit, some of the other criticisms that Musk has. I mean, he's using very loaded language. How frustrating is this to Republicans?
It is frustrating. And you've seen Mike Johnson say, I'm trying to connect. He said the other day, I called Elon twice. He didn't pick up. We've set up a time to talk today. Apparently, they clearly want to get him on board. And this is, I love that analogy about the glass. This is, I think, Elon's way of engaging. This is sort of how he plays these things. And maybe he thinks he can get some concessions that will cause him to endorse the bill and say they fixed all the problems. It's great now.
Do Republicans care what Elon thinks?
If forced to choose between Donald Trump and Elon Musk, they're going to choose Donald Trump every time, because would you rather have $10 million on ads in your district from Elon, or would you rather have a Trump endorsement? I think you'd trade $100 million from Elon for a Trump endorsement if you're in a Republican primary. So they do care, but they care more about helping the president secure passage of his signature agenda item.
And I'll also add, public sentiment toward Elon Musk is incredibly low. That's one of the reasons he's leaving government, is because his companies are seeing problems from the fact that he was involved in Doge and, involved with all of the federal workforce, many of them being laid off or on leave. So I don't think American people hold Musk at high esteem in a way that Republicans would risk upsetting Trump to support what Musk is saying. So I don't think he really is a player in any of the negotiations right now.
He just brought so much money to the
Right.
table during the last campaign, as he pointed out. But also, it just makes this messier and sloppier. And we can't leave this conversation without bringing up another aspect of sort of the sloppy week on this bill, which is House Republicans who voted for the bill are now like, wait, whoops, like I didn't know that was in there. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so they got this 1,037 page bill at 10 p.m. and they had to vote on it just hours later. It is this big, hairy compromise. It was being renegotiated till the very last minute to win over individual holdouts. And so we heard from this congressman from Nebraska, Mike Flood, who said at a town hall meeting that he didn't realize the bill included a provision to limit the power of judges to hold Trump administration officials in contempt for violating court orders. And he says he never would have voted for it if he had realized it. And
Town hall is never the place to hash this out.
I had no idea. And he said, he actually said, it was very funny. He said, I'm being honest. Because people were booing him. He said, I'm being honest. I didn't know. And then the other one that got a lot of attention was Marjorie Taylor Greene, not on a town hall, but on X, said that she didn't know that the mega bill banned states from any artificial intelligence regulations for the next decade. She said that's a huge assault on states' rights and that she would never vote for it if she knew, and that it can't be in the final version. And then you do have some members of the Freedom Caucus who voted for the bill who are using Elon Musk's criticisms to basically say he was right. Andy Ogles, a Freedom Caucus guy from Tennessee, said the bill's big but not yet beautiful. Hopefully the Senate makes steeper cuts. And Scott Perry, another Freedom Caucus guy, said that they expect massive improvements from the Senate if they're going to vote to pass it again in the House. So you see people who are kind of, they're uneasy with it. And that's the way these omnibus kind of legislation works.
I mean, I will say that hashing it out, the process this is a very normal hashing out process, but it's like the PR of it because they moved it through so quickly and because Republicans were all on board and it was like this unanimity, these voices coming out just makes it sort of messier. As we were all watching this feud happen between Trump and Musk and some concern about the one big beautiful bill, Donald Trump took us all in a very different direction last night with a slew of news and information. No foreign students at Harvard, a travel ban being reinstated, and then something related to a Biden investigation that we'll get to in a few minutes. But let's drill into this travel ban. Trump, in his comments, was linking the travel ban to that horrible anti-Semitic attack that happened in Boulder, Colorado on Sunday. That man was here from Egypt. Egypt is not one of the countries listed in the travel ban. Let's listen to some tape that was put out by the White House. So this is the message that Trump wants you to hear.
The recent terror attack in Boulder, Colorado, has underscored the extreme dangers posed to our country by the entry of foreign nationals who are not properly vetted, as well as those who come here as temporary visitors and overstay their visas thanks to Biden's open door policies. Today, there are millions and millions of these illegals who should not be in our country.
Okay, so James, let's kind of separate fact from fiction here. I mentioned that Egypt is not one of the countries. So when this gets legal challenges, does it matter what Trump's justification is?
So the backstory here is that everyone remembers 8 years ago, and it took, the third time was the charm. It got struck down twice, and then they were able to design it in a way that could pass muster at the Supreme Court. And it took until June 2018, so a year and a half basically after he came into office. When Trump came in the second time on January 20th, one of those first executive orders he signed basically ordered the administration to do this. Said, like, come up with a travel ban. And so they actually have been working now for 5 months almost to devise a travel ban that would be able to pass legal muster. Almost certainly a lower court judge will issue an injunction and put it on hold and it'll get appealed up. But it's on much stronger legal ground than the first term. That said, the Boulder stuff is clearly a pretext. Like, this is clearly something that they have been working on and trying to flesh out for months. and Boulder happened. And then yesterday, a judge in Colorado issued a temporary order to prevent the family of the alleged attacker in Colorado from being deported without some
His
due
wife and
process.
children,
His wife and his daughter.
The range in age from like teenager to small child.
Exactly. And so the judge said, you can't just put them on a plane to Egypt. They need to have a hearing first. And it seems because they aren't authorized to be in the country, they will eventually get deported. But the judge said, hold on for a few days. And so, but that then I think gave the Trump people this opportunity to use that and to say, we're going to ban people from more than a dozen countries. And it is more nuanced than the headlines. Like in certain countries, people are fully restricted. In other countries, there's partial restrictions. And then there's a bunch of different exceptions. This actually, when I talked to an expert earlier, said this is going to affect a relatively small number of people, but it does give a lot of authority to the government. And it will result in, it's certainly for people from Afghanistan, it's going to be a big blow. And obviously,
Yeah.
Oh no, I was agreeing with that one of the countries that is included in the 12 countries banned, 7 have restrictions, but Afghanistan is under the ban.
Yeah.
And you now have people who were removed from Afghanistan because they helped the US on the ground during the war there. They are afraid now that they will be deported under this new ban. So there's a lot of concern there. And it is somewhat interesting because I remember a lot of Republicans and Democrats as well were very concerned about the withdrawal from Afghanistan. I know Republicans used it politically to say, it was Biden's disastrous withdrawal. It didn't help the people who helped the US on the ground. But yet this is now possibly not helping the people who helped the US. So that was interesting too, that Afghanistan is included in the countries banned.
It also, maybe you can rattle off some of the countries, Rhonda, because it does give you a sense of like where Trump doesn't want people here from. And he says a reason, but give us a sense of the countries, Rhonda.
Yeah, the ones under the ban: Afghanistan, Myanmar, Chad, the Republic of Congo. Haiti was also added. That was not in the original 2017 ban. Iran, Libya, Somalia, these are all from the same region, the Middle East. And then the ones that are under the new restrictions, 7 of them, that would include Cuba, Turkmenistan, Venezuela. So this does go a little further than the last 2017
It's
ban.
more geographically diverse.
Right.
It adds in some more countries.
But the other thing with the legal stuff James said, I would add to that this time around, this will go in effect on Monday, June 9th. Remember, last time it went in effect immediately, and there was so much chaos.
Friday night, Dulles, it was crazy.
People were not knowing if loved ones were able to get on the flight to come back to the U.S. or leave the U.S. A lot of chaos there. And the fact that the administration gave this a few days also shows that they are understanding that they wanted this to be legally sound and not as able to be challenged as the last time.
So they're saying that the countries on this list don't have sufficient security vetting procedures to get passports. They have a lot of students who come over here on a visa and overstay their welcome. I haven't seen that data or that information.
Right. And I mean, the other thing is, so Democrats are trying to call this a Muslim ban. A lot of the press releases today say Trump's new Muslim ban. And obviously a lot of the countries are predominantly Muslim, but there are, a lot of these Latin American countries too. And I think that this was designed to withstand scrutiny. But as always, stuff Trump says publicly can be used to challenge a lot of these things in court.
Well, stay with us. We'll talk in a moment about what Trump is cooking up, an investigation into whether there was a cover-up over Joe Biden's health. Stay with us. This is Sidebar from the Washington Post. I'm Libby Casey. A reminder, you can watch along with us on YouTube. Just look for the Washington Post or catch us on your favorite podcast app. So in some of the news that Trump unveiled on Wednesday, getting us all distracted from the focus of his big, beautiful bill, was this executive order calling for an investigation into whether there was a cover-up of Joe Biden's health issues. James, tell us more.
It's still sort of nebulous, but essentially the president has directed the attorney general and the White House counsel to look into whether some of the actions Biden took were potentially whether certain actions could be invalidated. And it mostly is a distraction. It mostly is about trying to embarrass Joe Biden. But essentially the core of the legal part of it is the Trump team is trying to argue that because Joe Biden used the auto pen, the pardons that he issued at the very end, including for his siblings and a lot of convicted drug offenses, should be thrown out. And the preemptive pardons for the January 6th committee members. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't think that that's going to happen. They're on pretty solid legal ground. All the recent presidents have used auto pens, including Trump. There's Justice Department opinions that say it's fine. It was upheld in the past. So I think that this is more about kind of creating this climate of retribution. And on Capitol Hill, too, Jim Comer, the chair of the House Oversight Committee, he's also trying to do transcribed interviews with Biden's senior staff and Biden's physician to get them to come answer questions under oath about Biden's frailty.
Yeah, it's obviously politically motivated and designed, but I don't think we can sort of dismiss or underplay the fact that the current president of the United States issued an action yesterday reviewing certain presidential actions of his predecessor. I mean, that is like Iran Contra, deep throat in the parking garage level. Like this is accusation, if truly taken at face value, is bonkers. But is anybody taking it at face value, Rhonda?
I don't know if they are. I think there is, to James's point, distraction, that this is just another thing that can be talked about and discussed and all of that. But I also see different motivations for this too. Trump has talked about Biden more than I think we've ever seen a current president talk about their predecessor, and a predecessor who wasn't even their opponent in the end. He constantly mentions him in speeches that really have nothing to do with Biden, still blaming him. And I don't know if we'll ever see that end. I think some of it might even be that he is still upset with Biden winning in 2020 and how that played out. I also see on the congressional side that Republicans tried very hard to put together this Biden investigation when Biden was in office. James Comer led it, and they didn't find anything. Remember the Biden impeachment inquiry? They didn't find anything. They wrapped it up. It didn't result in anything. So I do see this as the retaliation politics of trying to find something because their guy was so sought after by Democrats in both impeachments. It may simplify, it may sound too simple, but it often seems as if that's what this is all about. I don't know what they will find in the auto pen situation, but
is there any evidence at all that Biden aides used this auto pen technique to sign things without Joe Biden's knowledge or permission?
Joe Biden put out a statement on Wednesday night after Trump issued this order and said, "Let me be clear. I made all the decisions during my presidency. I made the decisions about the pardons, executive orders, legislations, and proclamations. Any suggestion that I didn't is ridiculous and false." And I think in a court of law that will hold up. We are learning a lot about how dysfunctional the Biden White House was. And there was a lot that was not, I don't think on things like this, there was a lot that wasn't brought to the president. He was very insulated. He did have a small core group of staff who really erected walls around him to prevent senior Democratic lawmakers from getting FaceTime, to prevent mid-level White House staff from getting FaceTime.
Journalists from getting FaceTime.
Certainly to prevent journalists from getting FaceTime. He didn't even do the interview before the Super Bowl and they didn't even bring that to the president to ask if he wanted to, because they didn't think he could do it. And so there was this tiny group of people who erected this bubble around him that ultimately I think hurt him, but also did kind of deprive the American people of knowledge of his slipping. And so there is some there, but I don't think it's like a criminal there. But it is. I think it is actually. The more we learn, it is pretty scandalous.
But there's like a political fallout. There's a political there,
right.
And Democrats lost the election.
They did.
They're reckoning with that reality right now. Are we now in an age of retribution? Like, is this? I'm very curious to see whoever wins the presidency next, if this will sort of continue to be wielded. Will retribution be the name of holding the presidency, or will there be some sort of shift? Yeah.
I would say I think about that a lot, actually, because you have seen just a great shift in how predecessors and the current job holder are treating each other. And it doesn't look like a lot of grace anymore. I think, having been on the Hill covering both of the Trump impeachment situations, you did see that sow seeds for Republicans who said, we are going to get back. In fact, I remember Republicans saying that exact thing, that when we are in power, we are going to come back and do this to you. So I do think that as time goes on, this is going to be a part of our politics. I remember having a conversation with James Comer, the oversight chair, when he first took that role. And I said, are you afraid you're going to use this, that there will be claims that you're using your committee in order to, sow retribution? And he's like, well, Trump was investigated a lot and no one's investigated Biden. So that we just have to do this. And I just kept thinking, no one really has to do anything. You don't have to use a committee to investigate someone. But I almost feel like that's the attitude, as this is just how things are now. We'll just investigate
the new normal.
Our opponent. Yeah.
I think Democrats are wrestling with that right now too, as they figure out who they want to be and what they want to be. If they want to be like a turn the other cheek, or like an eye for an eye. And getting to that point, Washington was kind of rocked this week by something that people outside of Washington may not care quite as much about, but people here sure do care. And that is news that Karine Jean-Pierre, the former White House press spokesperson of the Biden administration, has a book coming out this fall, and it's called Independent, because she's leaving the Democratic Party, striking out on her own. What? James, okay, let's start with this. First of all, she's staying in what is come out, the press that's come out, what she herself has said on like her Instagram account and stuff like that. She's still very loyal to Joe Biden. Mm-hmm. And what she's really upset about is the Democratic Party turning on Joe Biden.
Mm-hmm. And so she's given some interviews where she said it felt like there was a firing squad after the debate where the party really ran
so
Joe Biden.
Biden has the disastrous debate. There's that 3-week or so period between that and him dropping out of the race. And she says there was an internal firing squad among Democrats.
And it was unfair, and that she didn't like what she saw from congressional leaders. But it's been fascinating, because I think that her announcement has triggered anger and frustration among other alums of the Biden White House, many of whom have criticized her over the last 24 hours, which has been pretty striking to see.
I mean, you talk about, the drama playing out on X between Trump and Musk. It is playing out very much among the former staffers of President Biden, because the knives are out as she's sort of come out with some criticisms or some complaints. There's really been like a surprising number of Biden staffers who have very, how do I say this? Like unflattering things to say about her and her time in the White House.
Yeah. It's pretty unusual.
Yeah.
There have been other White House press secretaries who have sort of left and ended up on bad terms. Scott McClellan was George W. Bush's press secretary, ended up writing a tell-all, and the Bush people all sort of turned on him.
But do we get the sense that this is going to be a tell-all?
I don't know. I think that this does. It seems like it's this kind of buzzy thing designed to get a lot of attention. But it's interesting. I think for whatever reason, she had a lot of enemies inside the White House communications shop, which she was in charge of. And remember, there was a lot of tension between her and John Kirby. He was the National Security Council spokesman. And so like there were a lot of days where he would brief, and then there were days where she would brief. And it feels like there's a lot of people who were working for Karine who are now out there dumping on her to a lot of publications.
What we don't get the sense of is a team that was rowing in the same direction, which is like essential to any successful team. That's why we all row in the same direction. Right? Rhonda, thoughts?
I think it speaks to a bigger situation in just our politics, in
Mhm.
American politics right now, is that we have now spent the last few minutes talking about the fractures in the Republican Party on the Hill, how, there are just different factions. And now we're talking about sort of the inner tensions of the Democrat Party. I think everyone's trying to, A, blame everyone for what didn't work out for them in the election. B, the other side of that is I think this country is so diverse, voters are very diverse, that both parties no longer can maintain any sort of ideas that there's a monolith that will vote for them. So both parties are breaking up internally. And I think the next election, I know we're a ways from it, but it really is going to be telling, because I think it's making you wonder, is a two-party system going to last forever? When is the expiration date on that?
Rhonda, James, great to talk with you both.
What a way to leave
I
it.
know.
I know.
When's
Stay
your book coming
tuned.
out? Yeah, when's your book coming out, Rhonda? I want to read that
Yeah.
one. I want
We'll
to read that
see.
one.
We'll see. Next week.
Thank you, guys. I'm Libby Casey. Appreciate you all listening to Sidebar. We'll catch you next week. We'll see what other twists and turns we have. Rhonda's still going to be chasing the one big, beautiful bill, which keeps reminding me of like the one ring to rule them all at this point. But we'll be watching to see how that all develops, how the Twitter wars continue, and we'll see how the political machine keeps marching on. Talk to you soon.